Yeah, yikes. That's all I gotta say. Caitlin Clark fans showing no mercy whatsoever, right? It is funny. There's a comment we're going to look at as we're going through the comments saying, oh, here comes the...
All the trolls, all the Indiana Fever faithful have just turned against Stephanie White in the most devastating fashion imaginable. And the cold hard data confirms this organization is staring down a multi-million-dollar disaster. If leadership believed they could slip a carefully crafted PR blitz past this fan base unnoticed, they have been violently awakened to reality. What's unfolding before our eyes isn't some scattered outrage on social media. This is a calculated, informed uprising from a supporter base that knows it's basketball. You're tuned in to WNBA Pro, and we're about to reveal precisely how the Indiana Fever's propaganda apparatus just endured the most catastrophic implosion in league history. We're diving into the concealed analytics that demonstrate fans are outright rejecting the tired old guard, and we're dissecting the sheer terror rippling through that front office as tip-off draws dangerously near. For months on end, the WNBA media machine has attempted to manipulate your perception of reality. They've relentlessly pushed this storyline that supporters are merely bandwagon jumpers, lacking basketball IQ. Their goal is convincing everyone that any pushback against head coach Stephanie White stems purely from basement-dwelling trolls and rage-baiting content creators. But the actual reality poses a far greater threat to league brass. The actual reality is Fever Nation is completely conscious and paying attention. They study game film religiously. They dissect floor spacing with precision. They grasp the intricate mechanics behind effective pick-and-roll execution, and they categorically refuse to stay silent while a coaching regime attempts to strand a once-in-a-generation, era-shaping floor general in the corner, running off ball sets. And if you demand absolute, irrefutable evidence that the fanbase has completely seized control of the conversation, look no further than the opening night roster announcement, because the hidden intelligence buried in that release is a catastrophe for the PR department.
It is ugly. Let's look at this. Our opening night roster is set. This just dropped. Kelsey Mitchell, Hines Allen, Raven Johnson, Aaliyah Boston, Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, Demarius Dantas, Justine Passat, Michaela Timpson, Caitlin Clark, Monique Billings, Shatori Walker-Kimbrough, and Ty Harris. That is your opening night 2026 roster. Right there.
Right there. Championship season. The official 2026 Indiana Fever opening night roster finally got locked down and broadcast to the entire world. Kelsey Mitchell, Maya Shaheen's Allen, Raven Johnson, Aaliyah Boston, Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, Demarius Dantas, Justine Passat, Michaela Timpson, Caitlin Clark, Monique Billings, Shatori Walker-Kimbrough, and Tiasha Harris. That's your 12-woman active lineup plus your developmental prospect. On the surface, it's a roster constructed for transition basketball. It's a roster engineered for tempo, spacing, and perimeter marksmanship. But the Indiana Fever digital content division chose to execute something slightly unconventional this season. They released separate graphics for every single player, showcasing their jersey digits and building hype for the campaign ahead. And when you examine the viewership totals on those specific posts, it delivers a raw, completely transparent, and savagely honest snapshot of who genuinely drives the financial engine of this franchise. The front office desperately wants to sell a team-oriented equal representation message. But the supporters cast their votes through their engagement.
Some insight into popularity. A couple of things really caught my attention. Let's go here. Caitlin Clark, 378,000 views on this post, okay? I scrolled down. Number one, Justine Passat, 65,000. I mean, that's pretty interesting because Lexi Hull's got 73. Justine's right on her tail, right? But this was what was really interesting. Sophie Cunningham, 357,000 views on the number 8 post right here. It's clear Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham are I believe.
We all understand Caitlin commands the spotlight most. Let's examine these precise figures because they're absolutely revealing. Caitlin Clark's official roster graphic pulled 378,000 views. That's a staggering figure. It's precisely what you anticipate from the most dominant attraction in women's sports history. She's the uncontested monarch of the league, the financial powerhouse that funds operations. But then I continued scrolling through the feed. I examined Lexi Hall, a dependable rotation contributor, landing at a quite respectable 73,000 views. I checked Justine Passat, a developmental prospect whose supporters genuinely cherish for her shooting upside, sitting directly behind with 65,000 views. But then I encountered a statistic that completely obliterates the traditional WNBA power structure.
Views on the number 8 post right here. It's clear Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham are I believe, we all know Caitlin is the most popular player. I think Sophie is top, really and truly top, probably 3 or 4. As far as actual popular, there's a lot more actual regular sports fans that know who the hell.
Sophie Cunningham, 357,000 views on her graphic. Do you grasp the seismic significance of that figure? Caitlin Clark sits at 378,000. Sophie Cunningham is positioned right there, nipping at her heels at 357,000. This reveals everything we must understand about today's WNBA audience. Contemporary sports consumers know precisely who Sophie Cunningham represents. They admire her fearless intensity. They admire her physical toughness. They admire that she fully embraces the antagonist character, drains contested threes, and refuses to retreat from confrontation with anyone. Meanwhile, Kelsey Mitchell, a brilliant veteran, a cornerstone element of the organization, and a handsomely compensated star who recently inked a Supermax deal, generated merely 31,000 views, 31,000, stacked against Sophie's 357,000. Let me state this with absolute clarity. This represents zero disrespect toward Kelsey Mitchell. She's an extraordinary basketball talent, but this constitutes a terrifying wake-up call for the Indiana Fever marketing apparatus. These numbers demonstrate mathematically that supporters have zero investment in the legacy WNBA power structure. They have zero regard for seniority. They invest in the fresh energy. They invest in the athletes who captivate them, who deliver intensity to the hardwood, and who enhance Caitlin Clark's electrifying approach to competition. And they absolutely loathe anyone who attempts to obstruct that entertainment value. Which delivers us to the absolute disaster, the digital annihilation of the USA basketball announcement.
Ooh-wee. I mean, the comments on this, yikes. Puke emojis. Stop promoting this awful coach if it doesn't make us like her anymore. How about stop trying to force us to glaze her? She destroyed the Vanderbilt program. Factual. That's factual. This one just kills me.
The cesspool. The Indiana Fever public relations squad, in their boundless, tone-deaf judgment, chose to publish a congratulatory image for head coach Stephanie White. They enthusiastically revealed that she earned selection as an assistant coach for USA basketball in the forthcoming World Cup. The front office genuinely believed supporters would applaud. They believed supporters would demonstrate respect toward the coaching credentials. They believed they could engineer some positive buzz for a coach who's been receiving relentless criticism. Instead, supporters commandeered the post and transformed it into an absolute execution. It was a wholesale rejection of the spin campaign. Let me share the precise language of the people who purchased the inflated ticket prices and the costly merchandise. One supporter responded, "Pukes emojis. Stop glorifying this terrible coach. It doesn't make us appreciate her any better. How about you stop attempting to force us to praise her? She demolished the Vanderbilt program. Let's halt right there. She demolished the Vanderbilt program." That's a deeply informed basketball supporter. That's not a surface-level observer. That's somebody who genuinely investigated Stephanie White's coaching record. They examined her disastrous stint at Vanderbilt University, where the squad repeatedly underachieved, and they're petrified she's importing that identical losing mentality to Indiana. When supporters are referencing your collegiate coaching disasters, you've utterly forfeited the courtroom of public sentiment. Another supporter stated, "We just can't escape this nightmare. We're not going to succeed under her leadership, overrated, and must be removed." And then, the sophisticated tactical critiques started flooding the replies. Is she going to attempt to keep Cece off the ball in the World Cup too? She'll sabotage that as well. The Fever require a different coach, not an alphabet activist. Listen to the absolute raw revulsion in these reactions. As long as she leaves Cece alone, I'm indifferent what she does. This is the most incompetent coach in the league. You possess the player coaches would literally sacrifice everything for. And White is executing everything possible to destroy Cece's brand.
By the way, signature shoes coming in September. What is going on? Really? Ticket sales plummeted since she came to Indiana. The fans have spoken. They don't like the lies from the front office or the questionable figures like Stephanie. Boy, got to be more careful. I mean it.
Yeah, the supporters are piecing together the puzzle. They're exposing the front office deception in live time. One remarkably perceptive supporter stated, "Ticket transactions collapsed since she arrived in Indiana. The supporters have communicated. They reject the deception from the front office, or the dubious characters like Stephanie. You can virtually sense the fury emanating through the display. This is a supporter base that recalls last season. They recall being deceived about injury severity. They recall the bewildering rotations. They recall Carolyn Peck, the media favorite, advocating for Stephanie White and attempting to persuade everyone that the Fever actually performs superior when Caitlin Clark isn't orchestrating from the point guard slot. Yes, the supporters recall that. They recall the media attempting to deceive them into accepting that removing the basketball from the possession of the most brilliant distributor alive was somehow a brilliant tactical decision. Some supporters are explicitly accusing Stephanie White of sabotaging her own franchise superstar. They're accusing her of implementing antiquated lethargic schemes and declining to position Caitlin Clark in the role she was biologically designed to dominate. And what's the WNBA establishment's answer to all of this enormous, undeniable tsunami of customer frustration? How do the executives address a supporter base that's openly rebelling against their offering? They scapegoat the YouTubers, they scapegoat the podcasters, they label us a cesspool of trolls. They want to pretend that independent media possesses some kind of supernatural hypnotic influence over hundreds of thousands of mature, intelligent basketball supporters. They want to imagine that if WNBA Pro ceased producing content tomorrow, the supporters would magically develop affection for the off-the-ball philosophy, purchase season tickets, and blindly celebrate a dysfunctional system. It's the most arrogant, disconnected, self-sabotaging philosophy in sports business history. I don't dictate to supporters how to react. I don't need to. We simply provide them the platform. We amplify the reality that the mainstream coverage refuses to address. We display the exact reactions that the Indiana Fever front office is frantically attempting to erase, suppress, and conceal from their corporate partners. I'm entirely unapologetic about it. If the Indiana Fever deploy an inferior product on the court, if they position the most brilliant point guard of a generation in the corner to function as a spacer, and if they attempt to deceive the fan base with transparent PR gimmicks and staged practice footage, we're going to reveal it without exception. The fan base is completely conscious. They're wide awake. They're deeply educated on basketball strategy complexities. They monitor ticket resale market trends. They analyze film breakdowns, and they categorically refuse to be regarded as mindless consumers who will simply accept whatever inferior product the league delivers on their doorstep. The WNBA establishment is panicking because they've ultimately discovered they don't dictate the conversation anymore. The supporters do. The season launches Saturday, and now the pressure is crushing.